Number 8. The El Dorado of the Seas. The Merchant Royal was a vessel built in London, England during 1627. She set sail for the Spanish colonies in the West Indies and the port of San Domingo under an English merchant company and her captain, John Limbury. After carrying out business, she set sail for home in 1637 by way of Cadiz, Spain, where she docked for 3 years until 1640. The Merchant Royal docked in Spain for so long because she was leaking and needed extensive repairs. But her captain and crew saw a golden opportunity the next year after another ship that had been tasked to move a large number of silver coins, metal ingots, and gold set on fire. The cargo was worth fortunes and was designed to fund 30,000 Spanish soldiers stationed in Flanders. Captain Limbury agreed to take the transport instead, since it was on the Merchant Royal's way back to London. They delivered the gold to Antwerp in the Netherlands. In August of 1641, the Royal set sail alongside her sister ship, the Dover Merchant. But the leaky hull struck again, this time leading to the ship and its cargo sinking to the bottom of the sea. The value of the materials on board was so massive that it was equal to 1/3 of the country's wealth. This news was featured in national papers, and the famous English diarist Samuel Pepys even wrote about it in his journal. Many people tried to find the wreck in the following years, using eyewitness accounts that placed the ship near Land's End in Cornwall in the UK. Due to the staggering amount of wealth on the ship, it was nicknamed the El Dorado of the Seas. In recent years, a company called Odyssey Marine Hunters has managed to salvage about 17 tons of gold and silver coins from the wreck, which is worth almost £250 million today. But who knows how much more is left to find. Number 7. The Saudi Arabian Titanic. Georgios G was a British cargo ship that is better known by its nickname, the Saudi Titanic. It first set sail in 1958 as a joint venture between some shipping companies. In 1978, Georgios G was operated by a Greek company shipping flour. During this journey, the ship was moored on a coral reef in one of the narrow straits off Saudi Arabia. The Greek company soon realized the repairs would be far too expensive. As a result, they sold the ship to a Saudi businessman called Amr Muhammad al-Sanusi, who salvaged the flour on board. After he had sold it, Amr then offered the ship to a Jordanian businessman who sent a team out to inspect the vessel. While engineers carried out an inspection for the new owner, they tried to restart the ship's engine, causing an ignition spark from the attempts to set her ablaze. The fire raged for days, burning everything until all that was left was an iron husk. To this day, the Saudi Titanic still remains rusting away on the coral reef she got stranded on. Number 6. The HMS Association. HMS Association was a warship for the fleet of Sir Cloudesley Shovel. He was a remarkable man, first starting out as a lowly cabin boy, but making his way through the ranks to Admiral of the Fleet by 1705. In 1707, Shovel's fleet, including the HMS Association, which was commanded by Captain Edward Lodes, were on their way back to England. On the night of October 22nd, the fleet thought they had reached the English Channel, but they were just sailing past the Isles of Sicily off the coast of Cornwall. HMS Association then struck a rock known as Outer Gilstone and went down in minutes. No one survived. 3 other ships followed her to their demise: the Eagle, Firebrand, and the Romney. One fateful night, over 1,450 men died, making it one of the worst maritime disasters in British history. There were only 24 survivors. But how did Shovel and his men crash into rocks that they should have known were there? The answer lies in the way sailors used to navigate during the 1700s. Using a technique called dead reckoning, they would calculate their position using speed, direction, and distance as factors, but these were guesses at best and could often be wrong. The tragedy caused such a public outcry that the government introduced the Longitude Act of 1714, which would offer a prize of £20,000 to the person who could figure out a way to easily measure longitude, the position on a horizontal axis of east to west at sea. This prize was a huge amount of money at the time, equaling about £3.9 million today, and even drew the interest of famous physicists like Sir Isaac Newton, the man who discovered gravity, and Edmund Halley, who has a comet named after him. John Harrison came from Yorkshire, England, and had been a carpenter before he switched careers to be a clockmaker. He worked tirelessly to solve the longitude problem for years until in 1759 he was able to show off his solution. He created a simple pocket watch called the H4. This marine chronometer would calculate where a ship was based on the local time at the ship's current position versus the time in Greenwich, London. It was an incredibly accurate piece of technology. On a 4-month test journey between Portsmouth and Jamaica, H4 was only 1 minute and 57 seconds off. Despite this, the government board that had set up the prize refused to give John Harrison the money he deserved. As for what happened to the HMS Association, centuries later in 1968, looters took anything and everything they could find. As a result, there was no list of what was taken from the ships. But things such as coins and even Shovel's coat of arms ended up getting shipped all over the world to private collectors. There was a public outrage due to the HMS Association once again, and this time it led to the Protection of Wrecks Act being passed by the British government in 1973. Despite the tragedy of the association sinking, its story ended up creating laws and technologies that would protect many ships around the world in years to come. At number 5, the Antikythera mechanism. The Greek island of Antikythera kept a groundbreaking secret below its waters for over 2,000 years. In 1900, sponge divers found something strange, the wreck of a ship on the seafloor. Among the items they found was a bronze device named the Antikythera mechanism. This would end up in a museum for over 40 years before it would be fully studied and understood. The device was made of a variety of wheels and cogs and was by far one of the most complex devices archaeologists had ever seen. It was so detailed that technology even remotely similar to it would not be seen for another 1,000 years. The mechanism is believed to be the earliest analog computer ever discovered, which uses data from Greek astronomy and mathematical concepts to carry out complex calculations. But the real questions were unanswered. Who exactly made this machine, and what was it doing on a ship? It's not likely that the Antikythera mechanism was used as a navigational device. It would not have been able to withstand the weather in the salt water. The main theories is that it was a device used to teach astronomy. The only thing we know for sure is that the creator was likely Greek, since this is the language the instructions on the device's face are in. One thing we are certain of is that the shipwreck's cargo has puzzled historians for almost a century and is likely to do so for so many more. What do you think the Antikythera mechanism's real story is? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. Number 4, the loss of the Patriot. In 1812, a ship called the Patriot left Georgetown Harbor in South Carolina heading for New York. But it never made it to its final destination. Instead, it created one of the most mysterious missing person cases ever. One of the passengers on board the Patriot that day was a young woman named Theodosia Burr. Theodosia was the daughter of an ex-vice president, Aaron Burr, who had been accused and acquitted of treason in 1807. Theodosia was on her way to see her father that fateful day, but the pair would never get to reunite. After the loss of the Patriot, there were many rumors and stories about what happened to Theodosia. Some believed that she had perished in a storm that overtook the ship. Others thought that the vessel had been taken over by pirates and Theodosia had been kidnapped. The stories and theories even made their way to national newspapers of the time, with some noticeable pirates claiming they had taken her. But the eeriest lead as to what really happened to Theodosia would be discovered in 1869. A doctor who was seeing an elderly patient in North Carolina was given an oil painting as payment. The painting depicted a young woman who looked exactly like Theodosia. In fact, several family members agreed. What truly happened to the daughter of the former vice president and the ship she was sailing in is unknown to this day. At number 3, World Trade Center ship. In 2010, workers excavating the World Trade Center site in Lower Manhattan came across something rather unusual in the ruins: the wreck of a wooden ship. The vessel was later identified as a sloop, and it was remarkably old. The ship dated from 1773 and was made from the same wood as many of the buildings in Philadelphia, including Independence Hall. This information was found by scientists who compared the rings in the wood of the ship with that of modern buildings, and they were able to find the matches. But how did a ship built in Philadelphia end up underground in one of the world's largest cities? The schooner ended up here after it was classed as junk in the 1790s. Like many other wrecked ships and trash, they were used to widen the banks of the Hudson River in order to make more space for the growing population. Number 2, the Indian Ocean's oldest shipwreck. Off the southern coast of Sri Lanka, the oldest known shipwreck in the world lies in the Indian Ocean and has been there for over 2,000 years. Scattered around the wreck is the remains of its cargo. Scientists have found glass, metal ingots, and pottery that have been smoothed and tumbled by the ocean's currents. Deborah Carlson is the president of the Institute of Nautical Archaeology at Texas A&M University, and has led an archaeological exploration of the wreck. The site has been named the Theodosia wreck after the location it was found in. Although the ship and its cargo are a jumbled mess on the seabed, there's hope that the vessel can uncover more clues about early trade systems between the Roman Empire and Asia. Using samples of wood taken from the Theodosia, they were able to date how old the ship was, but they want to eventually get the exact calculation for when the vessel sank. Using some of the pottery found on the wreck, they're hoping to see if any contain pollen that will help narrow down what time of the year the wreck was sailing in. And at number 1, the Andrea Doria. The liner was built after the Second World War and was the very picture of 1950s prosperity and recovery. Not only was she decked out in the finest interior design fashions of the time, but she also had 3 separate swimming pools for 3 different classes of passengers on board, the first ship to ever do so. But on a foggy night in July of 1956, tragedy struck when the Andrea Doria collided with another ship named Stockholm, just off the coast of Massachusetts. Stockholm ripped through the hull of the liner and she began to sink. 46 people were lost, but they would not be the only ones this shipwreck would claim. Due to the richness of the ship's interior and the tricky spot where it rests on the seafloor 45 miles away from Nantucket Island, it has become a way for divers to prove themselves and their skills, a challenge for some that would prove deadly. Over the years, the sinking of the Andrea Doria, at least 16 people have died as a result of diving near the wreck. Some have found themselves getting lost within the labyrinth of the cruise liner's interior, while the equipment of other divers has failed them. Due to the depth of the wreck at over 100 feet underwater, with a 4-minute descent from the surface, others have suffered from the bends, also known as decompression sickness. This can prove fatal as nitrogen starts to build up in the body and requires a special chamber to help divers recover. Despite the risks, there are some perks to diving down to the Andrea Doria that keeps divers coming back. Many pieces of memorabilia have been salvaged from the ship, including fine china used for first-class passengers, and a pair of divers from New Jersey in 2010 even managed to bring the ship's bell to the surface. Thanks for watching. Which shipwreck legends made you stop and think? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye for now.